worse for wear in the end. Neo gone. Guardian wraps back around, and it's going to be Bialy down in the end to just Snacks. Does find one. Let's not leave him out of this. The Big Apple, and Snacks is hungry. He's got one kill already on the USP. Low HP as well on Guardian and Flamey. He's trying to bait them out, trying to get them into one-on-ones as he dances back and forth between the box. What a shot on Simple! Oh, Guardian, bye-bye! And it's on to Flamey. He's tapped it. Flamey's got a big... What in God's name is that from Snacks? Unbelievable!
I've never seen anything like it. What the hell was that? That's got to be one of the sickest pistol clutches I've ever seen in the entirety of CSGO. Grand finals time and Snacks pulls this off. What the hell?
Medics in sauna. Scout kitchen, I'm watching kitchen. Solid kitchen, denied.
Nice pick.
Dead.
Nice pick.
Let's go, let's go. Soldier sword, free pick, free pick. Free pick and sword.
Oh, they just spammed it. Scattered it.
I'll be back.
It's coming.
For some reason, it has a really friendly community on it, for the most part, TF2. Maybe it's because no one takes the game seriously, so everyone's just there to make friends and have fun anyway. Everyone's far nicer than anything else that I've experienced in other games, even though they have some nice people as well, occasionally.
Visually, it looks like a cartoon kind of child's game, and I think that a lot of people aren't able to look past that and look deeper and see the intricacies of the game itself and the skill ceiling being as high as it is.
They're upper. Soldiers in. He's lower right. Max is dead. Scout lower left. Pushing him. They have Uber cell. They have Uber cell. Devil's lower right. Is the combo upper?
Because when I first started playing TF2, I didn't really even know about esports. I didn't know that was like a thing. I don't know. I started playing TF2 and I knew people played it competitively. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me just see what it's about. And I started playing with like a lot of people I liked, good friends. A lot of the reason I kept playing and improving was really just to play with those friends, to play with those people. Like that was the highlight really of my like college career, was like playing TF2 with my friends online. So.
It always fascinated me just how warm the community is. They're very welcoming to people like me, who I would consider an outsider coming into their world, their kind of cliquey world, if you like, of what they do and what they enjoy. But they would never shirk away from people. They would always invite people to come and enjoy it.
The TF2 came upon a really weird period where esports wasn't a thing, but we tried to make it a thing.
This always used to be a joke to me that people would say Team Fortress 2 isn't an esport. It is. It's just not a very big one.
Hey. Where are you going?
Follow me up. Follow me around.
Lang's having a breakdown and just talking to himself on set.
I don't want to hear this whole thing. No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quick off.
Game. Let's go. Right on the big guns.
This is a video game. Team Fortress 2. Released in 2007, TF2 is a multiplayer first-person shooter developed by Valve Software as a successor to the original Team Fortress, which set the standard for team-focused multiplayer games in the mid-1990s. With its cartoon-like visuals and addictive gameplay, TF2 was released to critical acclaim and captured a wide audience. In its 10-year lifespan, it has continued to receive constant developer updates, remaining one of the top 10 games played on Steam in 2018. Team Fortress 2's gameplay features 9 classes, each offering unique strengths. In competitive play, there are several game modes that utilize the flexibility of this setup. Of these game modes, 6 vs 6 is the most notable in tournament play. In most cases, the objective in a round of 6v6 is to win control of the map by capturing control points in an intense battle of tug of war. The team that wins the most rounds at the end of a given match emerges victorious. Teams typically start off with 2 scouts, 2 soldiers, 1 medic, and 1 demo man. The soldiers and scouts utilize their unique movement to attack whilst also protecting their teammates or the objectives. The demo man deals explosive damage over an area quickly and efficiently, and the medic ensures his team stays alive through healing. One of the game's most unique aspects is the medic's ability to make his teammates invulnerable. After a certain amount of time spent healing, he builds up and can use the Uber charge. This ability is a central component to competitive play and makes the medic the most critical role in the game, his Uber charge becoming the backbone of almost all offensive pushes in a given match.
It's the whole game is based around this one mechanic, timing it, and everyone playing around the Uber. That's such an enticing part of the game that I don't think anything else really offers. And it's just not quite the same. It's like a ball sport. It's all about the football, in the middle, and all the focus is always there. And TF2 kind of did something a bit similar where there was just this one mechanic that was so central to the whole game. And it just makes it, for me at least, it made it exciting. When I realized that you could count Ubers in TF2 and teams were good enough to time them and match the Uber to the other team and use advantages and things like that, that blew my mind basically. And I think that's something that, obviously there's timing and these kind of mechanics in other games, but the way it's implemented in TF2, there's just something quite captivating about it, I think.
They marketed the game right from the off as something that casual players would be able to just jump into really quickly.
On the surface level, it's this crappy cartoon shooter, right? But there's all this history of Quake mechanics, and then on top of that, things like positioning and strategy and stuff that isn't immediately apparent to the average viewer.
That game looks very cartoony. It must be easy to play. There's 3 facets to a first-person shooter. It's aim, brain, and movement. Counter-Strike was all aim and brain. Quake was all aim and movement. And TF2 was sort of this conglomerate of all 3 of those things. And so I don't think it gets enough credit for that. I feel as if people took the time to play TF2 at the level that my friends have played it at, they would have a lot more appreciation for it.
On the surface, it's this big cartoony, wacky game, but underneath that, it is the most exciting, enjoyable, stressful, fun, and really, as far as a team game goes, I can't imagine any other game where you would have a better time playing.
Knock some back, knock some back, knock some back! Have notes! Have notes! Have notes! Yes! Come on!
I remember watching an ESEA LAN finals, one of my first ones, and I could just see how good some of these guys were. Just from all my previous experience with games, I could tell that it was really high skill based, and that really drew me in.
It's so appealing because every single time you play, no matter how well or how bad you play, you just want to get better. You look at the logs, I could have just done better. Or you just die once, could have just done better.
Push up now, jump out. Come on, just spin there. Come on. Let's go, come on. There's a scout on point, scout at choke, scout at their choke. There's a scout at their choke, scout at their choke.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever forget just all the cool mechanics. I really miss rocket jumping and moving around a map that fast and just having the freedom of movement. like air strafing, all of the cool tiny mechanics you could do to outplay people was my favorite part of TF2.
Competitive video gaming is nothing new, with many multiplayer games being played at tournaments across the world for prizes, a practice that has become commonly known as esports. Some tournament scenes have become so successful that players are full-time professionals, dedicating their lives to playing video games for a living, playing out matches in sold-out arenas normally reserved for traditional sports. Esports has become a massively successful industry, with some scenes reaching as high as $131 million in total prize earnings as of 2018. While seemingly geared towards casual gameplay, there were some in the TF2 scene who shared a similar drive for competition and pursued the game they knew and loved as an esport. However, despite their best efforts, it hasn't particularly enjoyed the same success as its peers.
I don't think anyone is at fault here. I mean, like I said, I think it's really just a timing issue. I think it's actually a miracle that TF2 got to where it is and was as big as it was given the circumstances at the time. You know, it's a pub casual game with no competitive built-in support at all.
Because it's been such a community-driven effort from the get-go, because there's not big tournaments sort of imposing rule sets, imposing structure. We've just made it exactly what we want, which obviously means we've customized it way more than most games actually get the opportunity to customize their game. So I think that's moved it far away.
I think it's basically out of like a need, really, because we don't really have any support behind us. We have to really do everything ourselves, and everything we do is really born out of passion and love for the game.
The thing that separates TF2 from other games is definitely the community. I mean, at the time, it was a unique game. Like you had the Quake aspects, you had the art style. It really appealed to like a big range of people, and it brought in all these different creative types and keen gamers. And what came out of TF2 in the competitive scene, even though it's only a tiny part of TF2, was really incredible to watch.
They have no players for the next 8 seconds, or 2 down at least. This is absolutely crucial. EVL can just get on the point, put so much pressure, and they've already grabbed AMS. This is for the map. Goes on the point. Can he get it? Point. Gorbuglio getting all the yes, they are! EVL!
It looked like all the momentum was in Seven's favor, and EVL, they managed to come
You remember those experiences for the rest of your life, or certainly for life so far? For me, I've still got a bit left to live. I might lose the memories so far. But it's the same with LAN, like, because they happen so rarely, and they're a meeting of all of your big friends and loads of crazy stuff happens, you keep those memories for ages, and it makes the friendships stronger as well.
Good job, son. We'll get you into the time. We'll get you to school. Daddy, what's school like? Don't let them bully you at school now, sunshine. Do I stand up for myself?
We know how to engage one another and really have a good time. I think TF2 parties are basically the most epic parties ever, and that's probably what we're best at.
It's like a very rare environment for a competitive video game because people take it very seriously, but there's no foundation for the actual LAN to be built upon. There's no Blizzard checking your hard drives. There's no ESL. There's no Faceit. It's really just like a community-driven LAN where everyone really wants to win, but there's still more of a community feel to it. It's weird. It's hard to explain.
LAN stands for Local Area Network, a network of computers and devices that are all connected to each other within the same location. LAN parties and tournaments take that and use it to their advantage. Issues like ping and lag are no longer factors at a LAN event, where players from all across the world can be in one place at one time, all connected to the same server and on an even playing field. In Team Fortress 2, there are 2 primary regions with consistent LAN events. North America has hosted the ESEA Invite Finals and Esports Arena's annual Rewind LAN series. On the other side of the planet, Europe plays host to the historic Insomnia series, which has been the home of European Team Fortress 2 since 2007.
the LANs and the big shows, they play a crucial role. Like they're big social events. They're where everyone gets to see each other and hang out.
Holy shit. Look at his speech. I can't say speech. I don't like public speaking.
Hang on, guys, he's wetting himself. Put him down.
Come on, boys. Come on, boys. Come on. That audience is cheering for you.
They're our main showcase of what the game can be at its best because we're all on LAN and everyone's practicing really hard, so we get to see the competitive aspect of the game in its most positive light. It's fun for the talent and the production involved because there's like, hey, here's this big challenge. Put on this big live show in front of this audience. That's a challenge to rise up to for them. And like for the fans and the spectators, they get to come in and see their favorite players. And they get to interact with other fans and watch these games in real time and be a part of the crowd and feel that energy. Being in the same room and being able to feed off of that energy matters so much.
Man, I'm trying to keep his team in the game in this goal. The Copy cannot do it. Tech gets credit for the kill, but that was the team effort. Seagull first today, first respond. He's the last man standing between
LANs are ridiculously important in pretty much any game. Any esport needs LANs.
Online play is just not really reputable. Like, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in online play. There's a lot of ping disadvantages, ping advantages. People just kind of work their way toward wins they don't necessarily deserve just because they happen to live on the East Coast or they live in, Texas and they get 5 pinged every server they play on. It's just like an unfair environment, and it really takes away from the actual competitive nature of the game because you want every player to be the exact same as every other player, right? You want to standardize everything, and like that's what LAN does for you, and it really creates an atmosphere and an environment where people are more willing to compete and they want to win more than ever online. You lose a match online, it's whatever. You lose a game on LAN, and it's like the stakes are much higher.
When it comes to LAN, you can see the guy sat there. You can see Zebasai screaming at his team. You can see the players getting nervous, or you can see them ecstatic after a win. You get all the personal aspect that you normally miss in esports.
When you go to LAN and you meet these people face to face, just such a friendly, the barriers, they just dissolve away and you can just really get to know some people. And my first LAN event for TF2 was a hell of an event. Like, it was such a good time. And I can see why it's so easy to just get hooked into it and want to do more and more and more and devote tons of your time, even though you're not getting really much out of it.
There was something just kind of magical about it. Like this, just the community there, everybody trying to pitch in to make it the best that it could be with what we had.
Just having everyone in the same place just makes it all so much better. It just makes it feel so much more real, and it's easier to get way more invested in it and be like, no, this thing matters. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pour 110% into this.
Everybody in that room was just very into TF2, and it was, again, to this day, one of the coolest things I think I'd been a part of.
That's good.
I think it's what keeps the community going. And I think it's something that once you've had them, you can't really stop having them, or else it's a very clear indicator that the game is declining. Like, it might have been okay if LAN events had never happened, but you set the expectation up with I-46 really.
In 2012, TF2 casting organisation X Television pushed a fundraiser campaign to send 2 American teams, Leviathan Gaming and Classic Mixup, to the 46th iteration of the Insomnia series to face off against Europeans for the first time. With the combined efforts of the TF2 community, as well as a generous donation of over $5,000 by community member Salamancer, the fundraiser met a goal of approximately $20,000 in donations. The success of this campaign allowed these two American teams to finally answer the question of which region was superior, America or Europe. After an all-American final, Classic Mix-Up emerged the champions of I-46, forever marking the Insomnia Series as the world's most prestigious event for international TF2 competition.
It was really Sal behind the whole thing. Salamancer, if you guys remember him. He wanted to really see if he could take TF2 to the next level, and he actually himself put forth $20,000 of his own money to get everyone there and to put TF2 on the big stage and see if it could actually go where he thought it could go.
Yeah, so we're going offline soon, guys, but if it hasn't cut out yet, then stick with us. We're going to be back right after the break, and we're going to be back with a big game. We're going to be back with like the upper bracket stuff. It's North America versus EU all day.
I think that was really a pivotal moment to get the two communities together and to also show that this is a global community. It's not just one continent and another continent. We never play each other and we just bicker. And I definitely think it was a unifying moment. If we really didn't get any funding, we could have pulled the cord super early, and not have committed Salamancer's funds. But once it really seemed like we were going to get there, and then, his commitment, enabled us to even stretch further and to be like, you know what, we're not stopping at one team. We're going to send 2 North American teams over. We really want to see this happen.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, actually, that TF2 kind of found a home at the I-Series in a way that it, for whatever reason, just hadn't latched on elsewhere, and it became like an iconic tournament for TF2. It not only included the best in the UK, the best in Europe, but it also brought over the Americans as well for the first time. And I was genuinely amazed by that. And I remember at the time there was some crowdfunding going on. Back before we really knew what crowdfunding was, TF2 were doing that. They broke new ground. I think when you look at some of the things that TF2 did as a community, it was way ahead of its time. It's stuff that we now take for granted in Dota 2, in League of Legends, in Counter-Strike or StarCraft or whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to I-46. It's Team Fortress 2! I can't believe it. I'm already losing my voice, that's awful.
I-46 was like the coolest, that's like a highlight of like my competitive gaming career, because I'd never been in any place like that big, a LAN. I've never been to any building really that was that big. It was huge. Everything was huge. There were so many people, bars in the events, tons of people playing video games all night long. It was insane. I don't know, I just wanted to show up for, I-49, which I didn't actually go to, but I-52, I-55, and like show that I was really, really good.
It was basically a huge collective gathering of the community to try and put on the best possible show we could for TF2 and really see where that would take us from there.
Just giving people these events, these reasons to look forward to the next year, to anticipate something, it was huge. And I-46 was that, but to a new higher level. It was a higher standard of what the big premier event in TF2 is.
So yeah, it was I-49 when I flew overseas, because I'd seen I-46 and I was like, this is amazing. I need to be a part of this. Like when I was watching I-46 at home, I spent the whole thing just mad. I was just mad that I wasn't there. I was like, this is awesome. I hate this because I'm not there. I'm not part of it. And so I was really resolved to be part of it for I-49. I'm a bad spectator. I just get mad. Like I want to be doing it. I want to be a part of it.
We had this ridiculous
production quality. We had like a crazy good event, and it just made me feel like, you know, this is where it all happens. You know, this is hopefully where everything can grow from here.
I don't really have much fun watching other people compete. I enjoy competing myself a lot until I went to I-49, and that was the first time I've ever actually like been one of those guys like shouting at the at the TV, like hoping that they would keep the goal or something like that. Like it was, but instead I was like yelling at them to cap the bloody point or whatever. But on a personal level, it was really inspiring, and basically I had like a goal in the back of my head from that point forward to want to get to that level.
It's taken the game to a new level of competition, because obviously, again, other games get this all the time, get like international competition, whereas for us, because it's like a big investment for teams, you know, like even us coming out to America, I think it's the second time I've been, again, it's a big investment to actually come, and just actually bringing the entire scene together, because the Australian scene, European scene, American scene are all reasonably sized, I guess, for what they are, but you bring them all together and you have that extra level of competition that you genuinely would never get anywhere else with TF2.
To go. The Uber's popped on to Tyler, and here we go. Tyler is in platinum with the follow-up. They've not found a frag yet. The sentry does go down. Aporia's doing everything he can to get the damage up. Platinum gets the frag on Aporia. Snowblood taking out Tyler. They've not really got much cap time yet. IM have pretty decent help. But wait, we have the Scots on the point. Officer's out. He's got the oversaw. Get off. Look at the second oversaw. Oh my God. Oh, Blue Jackets. They've done it. They've team immunity.
The fact that this came along and we had the spectacle of this intercontinental game, the promise of like a world championships for TF2 was a real boost. And there's been like this cycle that's like every year people kind of get a little bit down in the dumps. It's like, oh no, TF2 is dead. This is the last one. And like here we are 9-10 years later and it still refuses to die. And yeah, I have to admit, like the NA-EU rivalry is probably one of the main things that just keeps it going on both sides of the pond.
But the thing that makes TF2 separate from all those others is you have this passion, but you also have a really difficult pragmatic time in making things happen in general. TF2 always had this massive barrier of being 6 people with no proper backing.
Well, we're running on fumes, you know. We can't keep relying on fundraisers and stuff like that to send out teams and casters, you know. As grateful as I am for it, like it's just not sustainable, and that's a word that's probably cropped up a lot in these interviews, is that it's not sustainable.
Have we exhausted people's goodwill? Maybe the sort of the novelty of it is worn off. Maybe people start to question. And just also the fact that TF2 is like 10 years old now, and maybe people are starting to move on to other games or question, is this the best use of their money?
I think at several points in its history, it could have gotten there. Like I-46, if Valve had jumped in, definitely. Like if Valve had jumped in and maybe thrown even $1,000 toward the tournament, like showing it any sort of acknowledgement other than a blog post, I think it definitely would have grown to like a tier 2 esport. I can definitely imagine that. But it definitely needs Valve's help.
Tell me a little bit about the letter you guys sent about, because I wasn't around for it, but I remember it being quite a letter. What was it? Who signed it? What was its purpose?
Well, I mean, it started out in the Team Fortress TV Slack. Like every summer there seems to be like a big kind of crescendo or a build-up with the summer LAN and Tip of the Hats. It's been different times, sometimes in the summer or September, but after that people are always like, you know, there's nothing else really coming up on the competitive calendar, and they're kind of weighing up all the effort they have put in versus, you know, what lies in the year ahead, which is usually total uncertainty. But for whatever reason, we decided to put together this letter, or something that had been kind of lingering in the Slack channel for a while, and then, you know, weeks went past, and we had kind of drafted up something. We'd got a lot of feedback from everyone, and everyone seemed pretty happy. All the TFTV staff signed it. Loads of like admins from around the world. I think some pro players put their signatures to whoever, and eventually they sent it out, and I think they got a response from Valve fairly quickly, even though we had, you know, made this breakthrough and got in with Valve and they were talking to us. There would be a lot of radio silences for long times that leads to this uncertainty where people are then starting to question again, why am I doing this for TF2 for no money?
I have such complicated feelings on Valve's involvement. Like the matchmaking update was cool. Having the more frequent updates is awesome. The communication from Jill and Driller is really cool. We've never had that before, and they're super nice people to talk to. And while that's good, and I'm happy about it, it's still, and I feel like such a jerk for saying this, and it's just looking a gift horse in the mouth. It's hard to not look at that and feel like it's still just too little too late.
The next major update for TF2 is finally here.
Meet Your Match update was just released for Team Fortress 2, the game we all love. And so a
lot of people are comparing Meet Your Match to the End of the Line update because they both turned out to be overhyped and underwhelming.
Guys, for the past 3 or 4 years now, Valve has consistently let TF2 players down with almost every single update. And I'm done giving Valve the benefit of the doubt, and I'm done pretending that the way they're treating TF2 is okay.
In the early days of esports, it was all about the community driving competition. Nowadays, you must have developer support. There are so many esports, there's so much going on right now that if you do not have the developer helping funnel money, attention, just the overall love into a game, it cannot survive.
There's like every other esport these days, they all have a matchmaking system.
And that's just something that any other modern esports game, you fire up the game, you click play, and you can get put into a match-like scenario.
And TF2, as far as the development of TF2 goes, never really had that up until the last 6 months. When we finally did get it, it was kind of half-baked. It wasn't fully complete. Everyone kind of knew that it was a work in progress, but it didn't satisfy everyone's needs and desires for a competitive matchmaking system.
Matchmaking was created by Valve mostly as a way to bridge the gap between casual and competitive. I think that what a lot of people expected was that they're creating matchmaking as basically Team Fortress TV's competitive scene implemented in the game. But those expectations were not accurate.
Like, I kind of see their perspective. They want to get the public player that just installed the game wanting to play competitive and feel at home, but on the other side of the table, they've developed a system that doesn't actually do anything when it comes to matchmaking, and I feel like that itself is just an embarrassment. For example, if you just start playing the game, like you're rank 1, you'll play against the highest level rank if there's not enough people, and it's honestly just a shame.
This time, this is it. Korean guys in the game. The other guys already thought the game started. Motherfucker, he left again! I queued up 25 minutes ago. Waiting for the Meet Your Match update, 3 years. Queuing up for a game, 20 minutes. Getting a team of players who live on the same continent as you, priceless.
This matchmaking is pretty crappy, I'm going to be honest. But if it had been released with the features it has currently, which are pretty underwhelming, if this had come out, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, it would have been like, whoa, this is pretty cool, man. But to see that Valve have already done matchmaking much better than this, like in CSGO and Dota, which I haven't played, but I assume as an effective queue system, is kind of disheartening.
I think that most people weren't really in touch with how Valve was approaching it. And I knew that a lot of things that I may want, I was not going to get. And I also thought it wouldn't be appropriate for me to assume that I knew how to create a matchmaking system better than Valve does. It's
a mess. It's atrocious, to be honest, to be blunt. They really dropped the ball on that one. They had a massive window of opportunity with Insomnia. If they honestly just pushed it back, I know it was quite late coming out, I think, but when it came out, but still, if they just pushed it back until it was really, truly ready, and it's still not ready now, this is what really boggles my mind, is the fact, what's going on in Valve? What are they on a permanent lunch break? What's happening? Seriously, guys, are you being held hostage? Are they making you all work for Dota and only working on TF2 in your breaks? I don't know.
So I really have no idea. I think they could have done a lot better of job with matchmaking for sure. They could have gotten into better touch with the community. I think any kind of outreach with the competitive community would have helped a lot better.
So make it available for everyone. You can't just take the game and make a rule set in the game to make it like palatable for everyone. You have to redesign the game, I think, large elements of it. And they just don't seem prepared to do that. I honestly feel like they're just... It almost seems like a con, to be honest. They're just doing... They're just trying to keep people around a little bit longer with as little effort as possible.
Do you think that Valve should have listened a little earlier, or should have been more receptive to?
Yes, Valve should have listened to people a little bit earlier. Competitive could have been a great thing for TF2, but it came 4 years late after they'd said they'd been working on it for about 3 years, and yeah, you need a structured format for a competitive game.
And I think it always comes down to, can you provide a reason for this game to be taken seriously competitively? And unfortunately, because Twitch wasn't around back then, if it had been, maybe this would be a different conversation, but because Twitch really wasn't Twitch back then, and because there really wasn't a reason to make TF2 the next competitive game, because you couldn't get that sort of viewership, TF2 went in a different direction. And it totally became something else. And it's been really hard to try to recapture just the competitive aspect of TF2 when it already started to expand into something else.
The thing is with Valve is they want the scene to be there first. They want it to be like grassroots coming from the bottom up. I don't know if it ever could have worked, to be honest, at that point. It was too late, probably. Esports had already taken off, the game was old, there was no real way to generate hype to outsiders. If they'd actually invested in it and not just kind of made weak promises and hoping the community would kind of do the rest, there could have been something to tap out of it, but for me, I think it was just too late.
They recently sent me an email after I said, I asked them, do you have any plans for supporting competitive TF2 after I-58 or something? And they sent me a reply back and they said, what do they say? We are having internal communications about the best way of supporting the scene. We will let you know if we come to any conclusions or something. And and that's on the one hand, it kind of sounds promising, but it's literally just their way of being, yeah, we're talking about it, but don't have anything to report back. We've maybe just briefly mentioned it in a meeting once or twice. We don't have any plans. Go away.
It's like Valve. I appreciate all the work that's been done in the last year with the matchmaking update, and again, having Jill and Driller be so front-facing. But having two of your engineers also try to talk to the community is probably not the best way to go about it. They're busy. Jill and Driller have a lot of really hard work that they need to do. And having them also try to be the main liaisons with the community in this weird unofficial capacity doesn't seem like the best way to do it. And it's so much of it just feels like this big black box still. We can peek in a little bit. We're getting more outputs from our inputs, but we still don't understand the internals that much.
And I tried to talk to Valve many times and nothing ever worked out. So before Overwatch is even released, Blizzard says, come to our studio and check out our game. That's the easiest decision I could ever make.
So you took it.
Yeah, I went there. The game was awesome, luckily, because everyone was still pretty skeptical at that point and being like, oh, Blizzard paid you to do this. They just said hello. No one had ever done that before. It's just in another completely different universe.
In 2016, Blizzard released their answer to the class-based shooter genre, Overwatch. It was met with a wildly successful release, drawing in nearly 10 million players during the open beta. By the end of 2017, Overwatch had amassed a player base of over 35 million players. On a competitive level, the game caught the attention of many, including players from Team Fortress 2.
I think it's inevitable that people will compare and contrast Overwatch with TF2. It's quite a natural thing to do. I know that Blizzard were very keen to not compare it, but you can't not compare it. There are very many similarities, okay? And that's even before we start talking about hero similarities. The game mechanics are very similar. And that's partly why you see highly mechanical players from TF2 do really well in Overwatch almost immediately.
It's like literally the second it was announced, I knew I wanted to play competitively, and that because Blizzard was making a team-based FPS, it was probably going to be pretty successful. And if I ever want to be a pro gamer, that was my last shot, basically, in a fast-paced FPS game. And considering it had so many similarities in TF2, it was like a brain-dead decision for me to make.
I feel like Blizzard designed Overwatch to be an esport. Like when Overwatch first came out, like Blizzard knew we are going to push this game and we are going to turn it into an esport. I'm relatively confident that Blizzard had these plans to like make this big league and make this into a big game. And I mean, when TF2 came out, they never went into the game expecting it to be a competitive game.
There's obviously a different level of commitment from Blizzard's point of view than to what Valve had. I don't think Valve were interested in any like esports related Team Fortress 2 thing. That wasn't what they had in mind. And Blizzard have signaled from the beginning that they do want this to be an esports title. So that's already a big difference, right? And I think the game design reflected, you know, like it makes a difference. They're really trying to balance everything around some of the top players, right?
The way they handle Overwatch is a lot better toward growth of the game. Everyone sort of knows what's happening. People are kept in touch. Even Jeff Kaplan makes posts on the Blizzard forums about, you know, problems he thinks, or problems the just whole entire team thinks there are in Overwatch.
It sounds ridiculous now that we had to both play in and promote our own game to that extent just to keep it going. There's just no comparison to be made to TF2, where everything is just community run, everything is just handled by them and not us, basically. And it's a huge burden off your shoulders if you're in kind of the position I was before.
It's certainly tempting to play Overwatch. Like, I, just as much as or more than anyone else, would have a lot to gain from switching over, just because it's kind of it's the pot of gold, you know, that everyone's been waiting for at the end of the rainbow. They've built up all these skills over the years. They've traveled to events. They've gotten a taste of what esports is from TF2, just a little glimpse of it. But then there's Overwatch, which is just this huge land of opportunity, apparently.
Yeah, it's crazy to see them move on, and it's amazing to see them have success too. And I'm happy for the success that they've had, because they get to receive a lot for the talents that they have, and I think that's great, and I'm happy for them. And it's so hard to, when I do cast Overwatch, to not be biased towards some of the guys that I had casted in TF2, because, you know, I just love the players.
Because they're planting the seed of an incredible community in other game communities. Overwatch got really lucky that it got to start with these amazing people from TF2.
I don't want to shit on TF2 or anything, because like I really do owe a lot to the game, like a whole lot. Like, it has made me so much of the person that I am today. I probably would not have even started playing Overwatch if it wasn't for me like playing TF2, because I bought a computer because of TF2. I started playing competitive video games instead of like sports in real life because of TF2.
But stay tuned, we'll be right back. Kaboom!
Even when I did start playing Overwatch and I was just playing casually, I did not start playing Overwatch like super seriously and like expecting to go on a pro team until I started talking to the people that I knew from TF2, and they got me into it. So it's just like, it just all comes back to TF2, it really does.
TF2 casting, I think. TF2 is such a fucking good game, right? I'm going to tell you that straight up right now, straight from my heart, because I'm pissed, right? I'm not going to lie. TF2 is a fucking good game, right? And the fact that it doesn't get the recognition it deserves just annoys me on a deeper level, right? It's such a good game. Fuck.
It's just an unfortunate. It's really just unfortunate timing, I think. If TF2 had come out now, maybe not coinciding with the release of Overwatch, but closer to when esports were a huge thing.
Obviously, at the time, like when they released it, none of this it would have even been like a thought or a plan. It was just a game to like pad out the orange box, you know, to make it enough.
The game wasn't designed to be competitive. As a niche scene, we managed to like bash it like a playable competitive game. But it's a niche scene. Like you have to it's a big barrier to get into it.
Valve just didn't support us until like way after. Like after Overwatch came out, TF2 was kind of left in its shadow. Despite it being a very different game, on the outside looking in, they look very similar. And who isn't going to pick the shinier, newer product when you have the choice?
That letter was an act of desperation, really. That was like Lang saying, I'm done with TF2. I'm prepared to give Valve one more chance to say something about it. The relationship with Valve is better, like you're saying, they promote events, but it's paltry.
Sometimes just that dead silence from a developer, you're like, do they care or not? It feels like Overwatch cares, but I've talked to the developers at Valve. They really care. They're just not as vocal.
They've started doing a little bit more communicating, putting out blog posts that kind of update the community on what is going to come in the future, new updates, just saying a few basic things, even if those are all the things you hear for the next 6 months. For some reason, that keeps people happy.
I don't feel any responsibility to try and sugarcoat things anymore for people. We've given a lot of our hours to the game and the scene to try and make it maybe something bigger than it is.
Like if it had got big, I guess you're always going to lose it. Do you know what I mean? Because suddenly going to an event isn't just, you know, if there's like 10,000 people, however many have come to watch the teams and watch the game, you're not going to be able to have the same thing. Whereas here, it's just, we're all going to the same bar because there's only one bar at the venue and everyone's just happy to talk to each other because there's no ego or whatever.
Everyone's really nice and friendly and accessible, that just doesn't happen in CS:GO. It doesn't happen in Overwatch. Like those games, it's very different, and there's a very separated feel between players and the community. Whereas in TF2, the players are the community. It's low open players that are coming to LAN to meet their idols. It's the people that watch TF2 are the people that play TF2, and so our player base and our viewer base are one and the same.
CS:GO. You just don't get as much of a community feel as you do with TF2, just because the game was so big. It didn't seem as easy to get feedback from people, at least from the community as a whole. It felt much easier for me to go and approach people that were kind of higher up on the community ladder in TF2, whereas CS:GO, I mean, you got feedback. They were receptive of me, but TF2 had a greater reception, I think, and willingness to help.
Maybe it's because it has that more casual feel to it and homegrown grassroots kind of thing, where everyone was helping each other to elevate TF2 to the next level, rather than trying to shit on each other to get the jobs or whatever. You know, like if TF2 was a real esport, then you wouldn't want to help other casters, for example, get up to your level. You'd want to try and help them a little bit, but make sure that you stayed on top of them because you want the jobs or whatever. But there's never been that kind of competitive aspect to production or even players in TF2, so everyone just helps each other for the good of the game. Maybe the money would ruin it. Maybe we don't want money in TF2. You can keep your money. Keep your money. I like TF2.
That was the best game. I don't care that I lost. That was amazing. That was a land memory I'm never going to forget.
It's almost impossible to tell people, to explain to people why TF2 matters, because, and if you look at it from a completely non-biased perspective, from an objective perspective, it doesn't have CSGO's viewership, it doesn't have Dota 2's player base. Again, I just have to say, like, the reason that I love competitive TF2 and the reason that I care about it really is just the people behind it.
You know, you start as a gamer. You start as someone who thought Bloodsire was a good name and decided that, you know, sniping's really cool. It's really cool to sit back a mile away and shoot someone in the head. And it ends up being an amassment of friendship. It's, you know, it's almost like an old home.
What I find slight interesting at the I-Series is the number of people who come to just spec has risen massively. But it's not just like people coming from, oh, I live nearby, I'll pop over. It's like people will fly in, like coming from Norway, coming from other countries, just to watch, just to be part of that community, be part of that experience.
I want to come back and see, you know, all these people and get to hang out with them again, because it had been years since I'd been to, say, I-55, and I loved that experience, and just even get to see guys for a night or two again is great. I think that's one of the biggest things, is the friendships and the bonds that you built with people along the way. And getting to experience that again is why, at least myself, why I come back to some of these events if I can.
Obviously, people move on, and I think they will continue to. And I think that that's highly likely to happen. I mean, I'm not laboring under any delusion that the little bubble that I live in now will stay forever. But I think when you really care about people, you really love people, and you really become a part of their lives, you're there forever, and we'll find a way. And I think that'll always be important to me. I can't see myself living the kind of life where I could forget about this.
Gamers are unfairly labeled as escapists, and that's not true. We don't play games to escape life. We play games to enrich life. What we've been able to do with a game like Team Fortress 2 is enrich the lives of not just ourselves, but others. And that's important. You know, that means something.
We put a tiny bird on that hat. Welcome to day 2 of Tip of the Hats 2017. We are here live from Esports Arena in Santa Ana. My name is Lang, and joining me on the couch is my roommate in the real life, Austin Taggerone. Wave.
Tip of the Hats is an annual charity live stream created by members of the Team Fortress 2 community. Every year, Tip of the Hats raises money for Children's Oncology Services, Inc. to help fund Camp One Step, a non-profit program to help send children diagnosed with cancer to camp. Since its 5th event in 2017, Tip of the Hats has raised a total of over $600,000 for Children's Oncology Services, Inc.
I think what's so amazing is that it's a grassroots thing that was really built up by this base of like 3 or 4 guys who got together with this idea to raise money. It's just started so small, and it has grown so fast that it's really kind of an amazing thing to me. I think it'd be a surprising story for most people to learn about, really, how quickly it's blown up, you know?
It's like when you're playing PUBG, everybody's playing PUBG. It's not really a community thing. When you're playing TF2, you're doing jump maps, you're doing surf maps, you're playing in a custom server, you're trading. Like, you're doing all these little things, and a lot of people take a couple slices of the pie, but not the whole thing. And Tip of the Hats allows you to embrace the entire pie of TF2.
All I've ever really wanted Tip of the Hats to be to people, to viewers, to donors, is just a really fun excuse to donate to charity.
That's as spicy as I remember it. Oh, I can't. My old friend. Oh, I've got hiccups. I've got. Oh man.
He's sweating.
I like that our show, it's the same thing I like about Games Done Quick and working for Games Done Quick. Both Tip of the Hats and Games Done Quick are improbably silly and absurd shows. And the fact that they still have this charitable, this altruistic cause, and that they are so successful at them is, I think, just what makes them great. Like, we're just having fun doing really dumb things, and turns out that you can do that for good as well.
Well, good night, everybody. That's Tip of the Hats.
I think for the TF2 community, it's been one of the prime examples of what makes that scene so great, is that it had people that were excellent at being able to put together a project, had tons of different skills, amazing artwork contributors, people who had talents all over the place, and a really generous community that loved getting behind projects like this and really enjoyed donating to charity, donating to tons of different projects. A real crowdfunded community. I think for them it's a real source of pride that they can continue having stuff like this happen again and again, that the people are still there, that the passion's still there. They view it as a real focal point for not just the competitive scene, but for everybody to get behind, so it combines all of the other communities.
I'm not looking to have one big blowout tip of the hat. That's the end all be all. And it's like, all right, we're sending this one off, folks. This is the big one. We're making it count. I want to keep doing it for as long as I can. I want to make sure I'm not burning people out. I want to make sure I'm doing right by the people that make this show happen. I want to have these long-term plans that we can keep doing and keep coming back to, because it just gets more and more special every year.
That's really validated the TF2 community as being like something that deserves to exist in the world. The fact that Tip of the Hats exists, and the fact that everybody's excited for it, and everybody watches it, and everybody doesn't, maybe you don't even donate, maybe you can't donate, maybe, you know, the fact that people care about it is just, I mean, that's what TF2 is supposed to be in the world.
Teams will change, or players will change, maybe the skill will get worse, maybe it'll get better, but it will still be TF2. It will still be the same community in some form or the other. And even like, if I look back to when I first started playing and what the community was then and what it is now, it's almost completely different people with a few exceptions, but the community's the same. Like, it's the same kind of atmosphere, it's the same community spirit.
The things that have always kept me coming back are just the competition, really. There's always been another season, there's always been a rivalry, you know, someone else that I want to beat maybe, and it's just fun. I don't know, it's my favorite game of all time. And even though there are other games out there, like Overwatch that everyone's quitting to play, I've played it and I just don't like it. It doesn't scratch the same itch, you know? TF2 for me is just the best game I could be playing right now.
I mean, I'm invested in it as a project because it helps the game continue, and I want the game to continue because it's just a game I like. I never enjoyed a game the same as I did TF2. There are elements to the game you can't get anywhere else. I feel like, especially the guys on 7, they're doing it because it's just the game they love, basically. They don't get the same, like, there's no other game that can deliver it. So many people went to Overwatch, played it, and they're just like, it's similar, you know, some of my skills translate, but they just don't get the same out of it as they would TF2.
You fight with your family. You love your family, but you hate your family. It's like we've all been to war together. You know, we all know what it's like to get made fun of for the game that we play, and those of us that step beyond TF2 into other things have a daily reminder of the way the rest of the world views our family. And that can be stressful and painful, because you want to scream like, no, like we're amazing, we're this fantastic community, it's so awesome.
I think a team from Australia going overseas indirectly can make people play for longer. When they inspired me to keep playing, because I really thought, at that point I put in like 8,000 hours in the game, like 6,000 hours or something, and like I wanted to kind of like have something to show for it. And I think that having a team do something like that can potentially inspire a lot of players to keep playing and potentially inspire new players to come along. And these events, is basically the more hype surrounding it, the more chance they're going to watch it, and more chance more people are going to join the competitive scene because of it.
I think part of like what makes the TF2 community the way it is that like the path has never been clear for us. When people started playing TF2 competitive, you couldn't turn off crits. You couldn't really enforce class limits. We didn't know what class limits should be. Should this be 6v6? Should it be 8v8? We don't know. Nobody's play tested it in a competitive format. There was never a clear path laid out. So every single bit of competitive TF2 that exists came from the community. It was entirely grassroots. No company or organization just like delivered it from on high, like, hey, here's this thing we focus tested and we think it's pretty good, and like, here's this game format. TF2 is just so much more tightly knit because we had to all figure that out together. Like, there was no clear plan. Nobody knew how to make the game work as an esport. You could argue that we still don't know, clearly. Just the fact that everyone's just having to dive in there and figure it out. And it's like, all right, let's just make this the best we can be, because we know at the core, these mechanics and these classes are so fun and the skill ceiling is so high and there's so much we can do. There's a real sense of ownership over it in the community. Like, no, this is a thing that we built. This is a thing that we made. And, you know, for everything to, you know, figuring out the rule sets and the formats and the strategies and the metagame and how to, like, improve your aim and how to hit all these crazy shots and rollouts and strategies and uber timings and writing plugins to make practicing easier and plugins to make spectating easier and figuring out configs or how to make the servers work. And, like, you know, just everything, every aspect of it. How do we run our leagues for this? What's the best format for our leagues? Every part of that has been figured out by the community.
What TF2 is to me is the best game that I've ever played competitively, the most fun that I've ever had in a game, the best people that I've ever met in a game. It's been a joy to watch and produce and be a part of the community.
You have a lot of good feelings towards it, you have a lot of friends in it, and you've built a lot of memories.
I've had friends my whole life, but I've never felt so emotionally connected to a large group of people ever in my entire life.
I grew up with that game. I met so many cool people. I don't know, it's just like, that's TF2 to me, and yeah.
When Overwatch released, it was really heartwarming actually to see all of these TF2 players be so good at a different game that loads of other esports people were trying to get into. It legitimized the fact that TF2 has been hiding these elite esports talents for years. These players aren't just good because they're playing some dead game that nobody else has been bothered with. They were actually fantastic talents within the game, and we've been watching some of the best esports players battling for years and years.
Those are my roots. Like, I came from TF2, I think. For me and all the people on my team right now competing in our energy, that's kind of where our story is, just TF2. We are TF2.
A huge part of the foundation of my life is built on my time in TF2. So yeah, I mean, I guess I have to say, you know, it means quite a lot. It was definitely where I would say that TF2 is where I started growing into the person that I am now and that I'm still becoming.
Some of my fondest memories from the I-Series are always the TF2 finals, because they were genuinely fun and yet still highly competitive. Great players at the top of their game from North America, from Europe, from Britain, and yet it all comes together. And whilst the crowd have definitely got some player favourites and some team favourites, they would cheer every great piece of play. No matter who did it, what side it was on, which player did it, they would cheer all of them. For me, I haven't ever seen a community anywhere in esports that can combine that level of fun, sincerity, care, love, affection. It was like a family. It was like TF2 community was a family of its own, fighting ferociously in the game. And then an hour later, sitting down in the pub and drinking together and talking about old war stories and about how cool it was to beat these guys this year, but next year we'll get you back. And all done in a really friendly, fun, kind of bantering way, but with ferocious competitiveness.
TF2 for a while now has been the only good thing in my life. It's hard for me to imagine my life without it, because I don't remember ever being as happy as I've been since I found this game. These people changed my life.
team. Good game. It's TF2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for Ready Up. We're going to have a little Q&A, but let's give it one more round of applause, please. All right, we're going to call up some of the individuals involved with this effort. We got Dashner heading on up here. Let's give a round of applause for Dashner. Uberchain's also going to join us on stage. We got Loris as well. A round of applause for them as well. Also want to give a shout out. I think they're going to stay down there, but a quick shout out to Jill as well from Marketplace.tf. And also a round of applause for Sideshow. I don't know where he ran off to, but you know, he can't get far. He can't get far. Round of applause. All right, come on in here, guys. Come on. Get close. All of you. All of you. All right, Loris. Come on. Good. Really enjoyed that film. First off, just want to give you guys all a chance to introduce yourselves for those at home who might not know the faces to the people, as well as just talk a little bit about your particular role in the film, and then we'll of course get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible to go first.
No.
Okay, I'm Loris, and I came on the latest, which is why this is a terrible idea of me going first. However, there was a film, and it started at some point in the past, and Dashner and Uberchain met together with Jill, and they started a thing together, and then they brought me along roughly last year after Tip of the Hats, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, I would do some editing and stuff.
Hi, I'm Dashner. I was the co-director and editor of Ready Up, and I shot most of the footage at about ESA Rewind forward, and I just helped Uberchain with her concept and figuring things out, and I never thought this day would come, but we finished it.
Hi guys, I'm Uberchain. I make a bunch of crap on the internet. You might know some stuff. I was the one who came up with the concept for Ready Up sometime before DreamHack Summer in 2016, and I really wanted to sort of make it happen, so we enlisted the help of some of the best talents we have in this scene. So we brought on Dashner and Loris to carry my ass forward and make sure that this could be like as good as it could possibly be.
And I just want to give one final shout out. There was a bunch of people in the special thanks, but I really want to highlight Paul Red Eye Shaloner. We were in a dark time in the project around September. We were actually considering canceling the project just because things weren't going well. And we got some good footage at Tip of the Hats, but then we went to ESL New York and we got to finally interview Red Eye. And his interview is the reason we kept going. And I think his interview saying that TF2 is a family, it kept us going, and Paul, you're the reason this happened.
Obviously such a ambitious and important project for you guys personally, as well as for the community. And Uberchain, I wanted to ask you if there was anything that you felt like you couldn't highlight in the film, you couldn't quite squeeze in, but what were important community moments to you in the past that you just want to highlight or talk about?
In terms of, sorry?
Just like personal or just things like
there's really a lot to tell about this, the story of TF2, I guess. I've been in the scene, I joined a little later than everybody. I wasn't around for the old days of, TCM, I-52 is when I started tuning in. I stayed up for the grand finals too during I-52. I was just as disappointed as everybody else was. But I wanted to be able to have people watch this film from the TF2 community. And it's not my film, it's and Dasher and Loris, God knows we couldn't have done it without them, and Sideshow and everybody who had worked on this film. But it couldn't happen without you guys. I want everybody at this land to look at the person to your left, look at the person to your right. behind you, in front of you. I just want you to take a look at all the people that have come here. For those of you who are watching at home, I want you to sort of take a look at, or remember, like, the people that you've played with, the people that you've fought with, the people that have tried to pass forfeit wins on you in Open, in a 5v6. The people who are all here. I want you guys to understand that you're what makes TF2 happen. You're what's made this film happen. Without you guys, this documentary wouldn't have happened without you. You guys are my family. You guys are my friends. And I know some of us might have, you saw it there, some of us might have had to do some other things. Some of us might have moved on. Some of us might not have gotten the chance to, do the things that they wanted to do while they were here. Captain, Starkey, I miss you guys. All the old guard from the old days. You guys are my family. You guys are my friends. You guys are my team. And everybody here, and everybody in TF2, they're your team too. And I want you guys to love them as long as you can, because you guys made this happen. I couldn't have done it without you guys, and they couldn't have done it without you guys. I love you guys.
All right, Dashner, I'm sure we have a lot of young, new fans of TF2 watching this. We obviously have a lot of established people that have been in the scene for a long time. You've been in the scene for a long time. I want to go way back, and I want you to talk about what it was for you getting into the scene, what your origins were, and how big it has of a personal impact it has on you and the community itself.
TF2 has made me the person I am today. I got into producing TF2 in 2014 with you. Yeah. Shout out to this guy. Love you, man.
Thanks, dude. Love you too.
I just love the idea of I just love the idea of telling stories. Storytelling is always what kept me back, and I've been working a lot of different events. I've worked Counter-Strike events, I've worked Overwatch events, but the best stories are always here in TF2.
Yeah. Let's hear it. That's for sure, ladies and gentlemen. So we are a big, friendly community. We're a big family. We would love to have you a part of us. Come down here in the future. More LAN events. You guys got to do it up. We've had an awesome time here so far. We got some more awesome stuff in front of us. Let's give it up one more time for the Ready Up documentary crew. Everybody that was a big part of this event and this documentary. Let's hear it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go up to Get a Whale real quick. Let's take it away, Get a Whale.